Good morning.
Good morning.
Still
How
morning
are
in
you
Al-
this
Still
morning?
morning in Alabama, I know.
It is. It is. Yeah, for another hour and a half.
Well, how are you? Uh, before we get started, and I'm looking forward to what you have for us today, but there's been some unusual weather, I guess, or so here in Southern California
Where you are.
we had a hurricane. I mean, it was a
Mm-hmm.
hurricane out in the water, but it wasn't a hurricane when it hit land. And I mean, it hit Baja California, and there were some people disrupted and affected, and people were freaking out because, well, one person said, "I'm going to move my car in the driveway," because they thought there would be this torrent down the street that would float their car away or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then just heard from one of my kids' friends' parents were like, "We need to stock up on supplies," and it's understandable to be prepared, but when the news is so full of panic and fear, people
Mm-hmm.
get a misunderstanding. And then my mom was just saying that it's hotter, like they're setting records, heat records in Minnesota. So we're
Mm.
having hurricanes in Southern California and the Southwest, and Minnesota's having record heat. And I mean, how's Alabama? Anything unusual? Any unusual?
Well, at the moment, Alabama is about normal for August, which is the upper 90s. But this weekend, they're predicting 100. I think that's probably going to set a record for us. So, yeah. But nothing like you, and we didn't have an earthquake like you all had either. So,
I remember the exact moment that the earthquake hit. I didn't
mm-hmm.
feel it, but I was talking to my son. I was saying something and I was moving around on the couch, and my wife comes in and she's like, "Did you feel that earthquake?" I'm like, "Oh, it must have been like, was it just now?" She goes, "Yeah." It's like, "Oh, I was in the midst of saying something and I didn't feel it at all." And
You caused that earthquake, Michael. That was
right,
you
it
getting
was
so excited.
the thundering voice right now.
Yeah.
Um, but here's my issue with all of this weather fear mongering.
Mm-hmm.
Any changes that are happening and the warming is centuries long, right? It's the sea level rise, right? The sea levels are going to rise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, if we are continue on this trend, in 100 years they'll go up, and it might go up an inch. Right, in 100 years it might go up an inch. That is not catastrophe. That is not
Right.
that is not the end of the world. That's just
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we have developed enough technology to be able to get to rise up, to build seawalls and to build, storm proof. They use it's a tactic. Well, this is not what today's episode is about, but it just like we're having record temperatures, record
Mm-hmm.
since they've been keeping records, which is only 150 years in like the age of
Mm-hmm.
the universe.
Mm-hmm.
The polar ice caps, both polar ice caps have completely melted and reformed in the past. It was warmer back then, right? So
Mm-hmm.
record
Mm-hmm.
temperatures just means for us in our short lifespans, since we've been
Right.
keeping, it's not
Right.
it's not
Right.
anything to freak out about.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
And and even in our lifespans, or even in the time they've been keeping records, they've also had big heat waves before. They've had, what were considered, oh, that's a 100-year flood, or that's a 100-year storm or whatever. And then you'd have another one in 50 years. So just saying.
right, and those are
Yeah.
blips on the historical weather patterns, right? It's and it's also cherry picking, right? We don't
Hmm.
when there are heat waves, they find those. It's not that every place in that region is experiencing the record. It's like there are spots that experience the records, right? It's like
Yes.
weather is anyway. Why are we going on this tangent? I started. It's my fault. I was going to ask you, how's the weather?
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? It occurs to me. I don't know if you've seen, but YouTube has changed their community guidelines once again. And now there's even fewer things that you can say and talk about. So we might be just getting to the point where all we can talk about on YouTube is the weather.
Not even that. We can't talk honestly about
True, true. Yeah. There's only
well,
so much you can say about that either. So, yeah.
and that's a bit of my frustration. It's like I
Mhm.
I have so many things I'd like to say, but some of the things I've said have gotten me strikes on YouTube. That's like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, I'm not. It's like, anyway, it's their platform. They can do what they want, but
True.
it it kind of trains you to bite your tongue. I'm like, I want to keep moving.
Or find inventive ways to say things. I
Yeah,
still remember, Michael, hearing you talk about the people picking process,
yes, I've introduced
which
that
I
into the
thought was, yes,
vernacular. Yeah.
which I thought was brilliant. We all knew what you meant.
I know
So,
if I've heard a few people say it, right? I'm like,
yeah,
I've
yeah.
had an influence. Like William Archibald says that, uses that one all the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Elections, there are elections. Yeah, the people picking process.
Yeah.
All right, Nina, what you have producer Gina emailed me, told me
Hmm.
a little bit
Hmm.
about what you want to talk about for the remainder of our time. But I see our title is Canceling Cancel Culture. So tell me your story. What do you have for us?
Well, so earlier this month, I became aware that there was an event taking place nationwide called See You at the Library. And it was being promoted by Brave Books, which are children's books that promote things like values, like courage, kindness, faith, etc. So, and one of the
That sounds like radical political activism.
oh, doesn't it though? So, and one of the spokespersons, if you will, was Kirk Cameron,
Yeah, I was going to think. I was
who,
thinking that. Yeah.
yeah, who is a flash figure for some people, anyway. So, anyway, I saw that this was happening, and the first thing I thought was, "Ah, I can get behind that. I want to be a part of that. Wonder if someone has already started this going at one of our local libraries that I could plug into it." Because literally, I only heard about it maybe a week before it was supposed to take place. And I kind of figured, no, I'm pretty sure that a week is not enough time for me to mount something by myself.
Hmm.
So, but maybe there's something already out there. So I went looking and was shocked to discover a Fox News story about the library in Madison County, which is where I live, Madison County, Alabama.
Hmm.
Uh, and that they were having this event at the Madison County Library, and that they had gotten an email saying that Kirk Cameron and Riley Gaines were coming to our library
So you just
for
happened
the
to
event.
it popped into your head, or you came across it that it was happening in a week. You thought, maybe something's going to happen at my library. Maybe I can be involved. And it happens.
Right.
The big guns happen to be coming to your library or to your
Yes,
local
yes, which
region.
was a real, yeah, which was a really, really big
Wow.
surprise, right? So, and of course, all the more I'm thinking, and realistically, I'm like, I'm not even going to be able to get close to them, I'm sure, and I'm not trying to, but definitely want to get behind this and help support this. So I was looking for, now, who do I volunteer with? And here they are interviewing a lady named Emily, who is the founder of Moms for Liberty, which is the local chapter. And this group had booked the library room and then got the email that, Kirk Cameron and Riley Gaines were coming to their event at the library. So, of course, and Fox News is interviewing them about this, how excited they were, et cetera. So I'm like, okay, Emily, how do I get in touch with Emily to see how I can volunteer? What can I do? So I found that there was a Facebook group for Moms for Liberty. I asked to join it. It actually took a couple of days for them to reply and let me in the group, but they did. In the meantime, I started hearing on the local news that there was some stuff going on, that people were coming up from Birmingham, which is about an hour and a half south of us in the state, to protest what was going to be happening at the library. Now, why people are protesting faith, courage, kindness, those kind of values, I don't know, but they were coming to do that. So I finally got in touch with, the group and started looking through their posts and everything to see what was going on. And what I found out was that the library, they had booked this room, they had paid their fee, booked the room far in advance. And all of a sudden, the library, when they heard that people were coming from Birmingham, suddenly tells them, oh, we're worried about capacity issues in this room. And so, we just don't think there's not going to be enough room for everybody that you've got. And so we're going to cancel the event. Just out of the blue. Now, this is not, now, mind you, the event is on Saturday, and they're telling them this on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to cancel the event. And they don't even give them an option. Moms for Liberty came back and said, oh, well, could we have it outdoors? Maybe we could have it on the grounds at the library, and then, size won't be an issue.
No capacity problem there.
Yeah, they said, no, you need a permit to do that, and you don't have enough time to apply for one and get it approved. So no, we're just canceling it. And so Moms for Liberty said, okay, well, how about if we just rotated people in and out of the room, so there's never more than your set amount in the room? We can
something
do that.
Called crowd control. Like people can.
Yeah. But the library said, no, we're canceling it. Just plain canceling it. So, and the library puts out a statement to the public that it was canceled. So now Moms for Liberty are like,
so the library said, don't come to the library. Like, what?
Yeah.
Don't come to the library?
I think that was basically it. So then there was this weird little thing that happened in between. Two things happened in particular. One was that the legal team for Brave Books sent a letter to the library, and they said, okay, we've heard what's going on. We recognize that whether it's because of capacity or whether it's because of your concerns over security, either way, here's what the courts have already said about that. And therefore, our conclusion is you are violating the First Amendment rights of our client, and you must cease. And therefore, we're giving you till Friday. Now, this is the day before the event was supposed to be. We're giving you till Friday to reply at noon to say whether or not you are actually going to host this event, reverse yourself and host this event or not. And if you do not, then we will litigate this in court. And, let us point back again to the fact that the court has already decided this in other cases, and here's what they've said. So that was the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened was this was just a God thing, in my opinion. So Moms for Liberty normally meets in a church when they meet on a regular basis. Well, that particular week, the church had something else going on, couldn't accommodate them. So Moms for Liberty booked the same room that they had originally booked in the library for the event on Saturday. They booked that room to have their meeting on Thursday night. Okay. So they get in the room, they're having their meeting, and they notice that there are some new signs on the wall. And the new signs they're paper, they're in, little cheap frames, but they basically say the fire department has been here and has assessed the capacity of this room to be this. And there were actually two rooms that had a folding wall in between, and the Moms for Liberty had both. They had booked both for Saturday. And so the capacity for one room, the bigger room, was supposed to be 225, and the capacity for the smaller one was 75. So together, 300 people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the library had told them, no, you can't have more than 225, even if you have both rooms. So Moms for Liberty is here meeting in this room, and they see those signs up there, and they note that those new signs are dated August 1st, which happened to be the same day that the library found out the protesters were coming.
Interesting.
And then they happened to notice that those signs are on the wall over a plaque. So they take the signs down to see the plaque, and the plaque is a permanent plaque, one of those that are like vinyl, and it's got the letters carved into it and stuff. And it says maximum capacity for the room was 361. So, is anybody thinking this is really about capacity?
Oh my goodness.
No. So Friday comes, everybody's wondering, noon comes and goes, we don't hear anything. Finally, late afternoon, we hear it's a go. And what they worked out with the library was they would keep the number of people in there to 225, and they would have the overflow go somewhere else. Okay. Now, I had been reviewing the Facebook post, and I had noticed that one church in our city had stepped up and said, we have room for 1,000. You can come here. So Moms for Liberty said, thank you. We will take you up on that, but we're still going to have the event at the library because that's the whole point, is to be offering a different set of values in our library, because others have been offering their values and we don't agree with those in the public square. We don't agree with those. So we want our values to be out there in the public square as well.
It's called freedom and liberty.
Yes, exactly. So now it's a go, but of course, Moms for Liberty are worried because word had already gotten out in the community that the event had been canceled. So now they're thinking, will anybody even show up? Can we possibly get the word out? So I had been told on Saturday morning that I was to come to the library. I was to find the volunteer coordinator, and she would tell me which location I needed to be at.
So this is your local library. How far is this from where you live? This
is probably maybe 4 or 5 miles as the crow flies. Wow. Our city, the one I'm living in, Huntsville, is a pretty big city, and it's spread out, like really spread out.
Gotcha.
And Madison, which is where the Madison County Library is, or the Madison City Library, I should say, is right up next to our city, so much so that half the time you can't tell which one you're in.
Right.
So that's just as close to me as the downtown library in Huntsville. So anyway, Saturday comes, I go down to the library. The event's supposed to be at 10:30. I get there about 9:15. And what I see is there are maybe 25 protesters who are trying to gather at the front door. And the police are there. The police are saying, no, you can't be at the front door. We're not going to have people running the gauntlet trying to get past you to get in the library. You have to go to the sidewalk. Now, the sidewalk straddles the opening to the parking lot. So even so, people coming into the parking lot, families with their kids, we're going to have to be passing through the protesters, but at least they wouldn't have to walk through it. But I looked over, and at the freight door of the library, a little further back, there was a large crowd gathered and a line that backed up all the way to the outer edge of the parking lot. And I would say there was easily 200 people in that crowd. I found the volunteer coordinator. I said, where do you need me? She said, we actually need you at the church. So I said, okay, I'm going to the church. Headed to the church. When I got to the church, there was no protesters there at all. So at the church, we're waiting for the overflow. Remember, we're not getting the ones who get to stay at the library. We're only getting the ones who get turned away. Right. And we're wondering, will they actually come?
Right.
All that way? I don't know. So we'll wait and see what happens. Well, people started coming in, and I should tell you this as well. Kirk Cameron and Riley Gaines were only scheduled to go to the Madison Library, but they agreed to come to the church as well because they didn't want the people who didn't get in to miss anything. Yeah. And all they were going to be doing was reading some of those books that support those values to the kids. That's it. So we waited over there. People start coming in. I'm a greeter at the door, so I get to see everybody who's coming in, direct them to the auditorium. I estimate that there was easily around 300 people
in the overflow
who showed up there in the overflow. Yeah. And at the main library, of course, Kirk Cameron and Riley Gaines went there first. So, we were waiting for them to get where we were. In the meantime, people in the room were singing patriotic songs and praying together. It was just a beautiful thing. Finally, we get word Kirk Cameron, Riley Gaines are on their way over. And while they're on their way over and they're coming in the back door, so to speak, so they're coming right into the auditorium, the coordinators of the event at the Madison Library are coming in the front door where I am. So we're asking them, well, how did it go at the library? And they said, we had a capacity crowd. We kept it to 225 like the library wanted, but we had a capacity crowd, and it was mostly kids, 50% kids,
Nice.
I would say. So they had distributed little flags to all of them. They had a little video of the kids all waving their flags together in the room. It was great. But then they told us, but it was very hot. And I said, hot?
Of course.
Like too many people in the room, stuffy, hot? And they were like, no, like somebody
The AC
turned on
wasn't
air
on.
conditioning.
Yeah.
Hot. Oh, isn't that interesting? So let me back up and tell you then what the American Library Association had done during that week prior to this event. So they had elected, a little bit before that, they had elected a new president of the American Library Association. And a few days after she was elected, she put out a tweet that said, as a Marxist lesbian, I am thrilled to be guiding the Library Association in a new direction.
What?
So yes, now this is not something that was put out there before she got elected, but after she was elected. Y'all keep that in mind, okay? So this gets out there, and then someone leaked or found and put out in the press, the American Library Association had sent out a letter to their member libraries telling them, we're aware of the See You at the Library event happening across the country. If you don't want those people in your library, here's how you can keep them out. And among the things they listed was, tell them the AC isn't working and turn it off. But they had also said, you can tell them the room doesn't have the capacity.
So print up some papers, print up some lies and post them on the walls.
Exactly. So, but the event went on, and between the two places, I estimate, and this is a conservative estimate, we had 500 people at the event. Moms for Liberty, when they first booked the room, were thinking they would be blessed if they got 50. They got 10 times that. And the protesters, some of the police said there was 100, others said there was about 50. So somewhere between 50 and 100. There was between 5 times as many and 10 times as many people coming to the library for this event as there were protesters out there. And the protesters had to come from somewhere else, because it was not from this community that they were here.
Right. So, some paid thugs, right?
Yes.
It's probably that same group that's traveling the country looking for something to protest, right? There are people are bussed around the country because there aren't enough organic protests. All right, Nina, I have a couple things to say. We got about 5 minutes left. Number one, you're on the front lines, Nina. You are on the front lines of this cultural war. Like, what is going on here? And I am honored to be your friend, and thank you for relaying this, because this is all current. This is current events. Like, it was just this month, and I love hearing about it. And we're all busy with our lives, and so that's what the body of Christ is, right? We're all doing different things. God's called us to different things, and I would have died to have been there, Nina, but I am there in spirit.
I felt so thrilled that I got to. This, even if they had not been coming to our library, I was thrilled that someone in our community had booked the room and was planning to host this and do this. All right. And I was thrilled to be a part of it.
Here's the other thing. Do you know what the Barbra Streisand effect is, or the Streisand effect? Are you familiar with that? Have you heard that before? All right. And it's just it's this brilliant this brilliant effect or scheme that God has cooked up. I mean, so Barbara Streisand has some palatial mansion out here on the left coast, somewhere up the coast, and I'm sure it's this gorgeous, gorgeous place. And being a celebrity and a star, and keeping your place having a nice place and keeping it up, it was selected for some I think it was a real estate magazine or I think it was an architecture magazine, and they wanted to feature her home in this magazine. So they did. They ran a spread on Barbara Streisand's home. And when she caught wind of it, that her home was going to be like, the world was now going to know where her home was, she's like, I don't want anybody to know where I live. I want to protest this. You can't publish that. And by protesting it, more people figured out where she lived than would have found out if she hadn't.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
so like, I don't want people to know where I live. She raises a stink, and now more people are looking, and more people, it's
Right.
referred to now as the Streisand effect. And so we don't want those people coming to our library. We don't want people looking at those books. We don't want people knowing what's going on. Let's go protest. And more people find out. And this is the way God has set it up, right? The protesters are in God's control. God is using those protesters to spread the word.
Yep. Yeah. And, there was actually, I saw comments like that on Moms for Liberty's Facebook page afterwards when we were downloading our pictures that we had taken and so forth. And over again, you kept seeing that comment, and I probably made it myself. Thank you to those protesters, because this blew up so much bigger than it would have had they not been coming.
Yeah. And it's also it's the bright side, or the, what God is doing in the world and in our nation when people protest good leaders, good leadership. It's this dividing line. People think, oh, politics is so divisive, it's terrible, but it's exposing, right? The exposing of corruption, when there's nowhere to hide, right? It's the protest that indicates which side you should be on. It's like when you see crazy radical people, and they try to suppress that. When you see people burning down cities, burning down neighborhoods, and a reporter out there saying it's mostly peaceful, as you've seen that, right? As the thing burns behind, this was mostly peaceful, aside from that property owner whose life has been ruined by these righteous protesters, right? And then all of that money that's raised for the cause doesn't go to help that person, right? Anyway. So Nina,
and I tell you, that was the very event, I think, that when I saw it, when I saw that reporter standing there, burning buildings behind him, and he says, this is mostly peaceful event. And I thought, does he think we can't see that? And I thought, surely, when they cut back to the studio, someone is going to say, well, but no one did. And I was shocked. I thought, oh my goodness, have we been silenced that far that we can't even state the obvious? So that was a wake-up call for me, and that was really the start of whatever activism I might be doing. That was kind of the start of it for me. I was like, no, this can't stand. We've got to do something. Well, and I do want to give a shameless plug right here. So Emily, who is one of the co-founders of Moms for Liberty, is actually going to be a guest on our chat session on Monday, this coming Monday. Yeah. So please come watch us. And I will also tell you, she just started a YouTube channel, Michael. God called her to start a YouTube channel, and she was like, I'm not even sure what I'm doing, but I do have things I want to say.
You've come to the right place.
Yes, you've come to the right place. So she's calling it The Controversial Mom.
All right.
All right. So just type that into the YouTube search, and y'all go over there and please subscribe and watch her channel. She's going to be saying a lot of great stuff. Excellent. Thank you. I just Nina, saw where Carrie said that they're going to go over there.
Good. Yes. And thank you, Nina, for coming. It's always, I always look forward to what you have. Like producer Gina says, well, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, let Nina pick it. I want to hear what she has to say. So thank you.
Thank you.
We're a little bit over time, but thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Be
Bye, Nina.
encouraged. Bye.